Friends, greetings. My passion for CX got me to the doorstep of jobs to be done. I had no clue about it. After some initial learning and seeing a friend in jobs to be done, I came across Strategy N and Tony Ulwick. For the benefit of CX professionals and enthusiasts, I requested Tony for a short conversation on jobs to be done. He has been kind enough to join with us today. Hi, Tony. Greetings and namaste.
Karen, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for giving your precious time. And for the audience, before we continue, a little about Tony. Tony is a pioneer in jobs to be done theory and the inventor of outcome-driven innovation. Doesn't that sound interesting? A powerful strategy and innovation process with a documented success rate, 5 times the industry average. Digging a little deeper, Tony began his career with IBM's PC division way back in 1981. Witnessing the failure of PC Junior, Tony was inspired to develop a better way to innovation. Since founding the innovation consultancy Strategy N in 1991, 30 plus years now, Tony and his army of practitioners have supported Fortune 100 brands with strategy engagements, including brands like Philips, Microsoft, Bosch, helping them generate billions of additional revenue. I'm sure you are even more interested now and all ears. With that, I would like to request Tony to help us with these 2 questions. Tony, may I please proceed with the questions?
Please begin. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The first one, as an authority with 30 plus years of rich experience on jobs to be done, what would be the easiest definition of jobs to be done, one that a common man can easily relate with?
That's such a great question. And jobs to be done as a concept is really quite simple. Jobs to be done is really, it's a lens, it's a perspective. It's the ability to look at customers and markets and needs through the lens of the hole maker, not the drill maker. If you're familiar with that
Yes.
quote, right? People don't want the quarter-inch drill, they want the quarter-inch hole. What companies often do is they think they're in the drill market, right? And they make drills and their competitors are all drill makers. But the hole maker doesn't see it that way. The hole maker's trying to make a quarter-inch hole. They would use any product that would get the job done well to achieve that goal. And if you're a drill maker, you go talk to customers about how to make a better drill. But if you're the hole maker, if you see it through that lens, you're going out to customers to try to understand how to better create a quarter-inch hole. And maybe it doesn't require a drill. Maybe it's some other solution, right? So it's the ability to see the world of innovation through the hole maker's lens. And when you do that, the first thing you might notice is why people buy products in the first place, which is to get a job done, right? So people are buying products to get a job done. And what that helps you do is then figure out, well, what a market might be then. So in other words, if people buy products to get a job done, instead of defining the market around the product or the technology, let's define the market as a group of people getting a job done, right? And that simple view allows you to go study the job, right? The job becomes a unit of analysis. When you talk to customers, you're talking to them about getting the job done, not about creating products, right? Absolutely. And you're seeing everything through the lens of the hole maker. And if you can just follow that all the way through to the very end, you'll understand very deeply what they're trying to achieve, and then
Mhm.
be able to come up with solutions that get the job done significantly better.
That's amazing. It definitely two things stood out when you mentioned about market as a group of people, because I was introduced to the persona concept, and I was also trying to get the relationship between looking through the lens as of customers as a market, or the other route being persona. But I arrived at an understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, that once the market is identified, then doing something like a persona identification would serve better. Am I right at it? Would you like to add?
Sure. So the way we like to think about it is, you don't want to create the persona up front, right? Just define the market, a group of people getting a job done, like parents trying to pass on life lessons to children. That's a group of people trying to get a job done. And we don't want to create a persona quite yet. Let's just include everybody. And
Yeah.
the markets, includes all parents. Think of it like that. And then we go study the job,
Mm.
understand needs through that lens. And once we understand what those needs are and which are unmet, then we can start finding segments of parents with different unmet needs, and we can create personas around those segments. So we're going to do that much further downstream.
Mm.
Upstream, you defining the market to be all inclusive. And why wouldn't you, right? We don't know where the opportunities are yet. Later on, you can pick a segment and say, okay, this is a segment of parents who have preschool children,
Mm.
and these are earlier age, and because of that, they have a set of needs that are unmet, that are different than parents of older or adolescent children, as an example. Right?
That's a wonderful example. And in fact, when you're speaking about market as a group of people trying to get a job done, uh, yesterday, saw a colleague in the office give me this visiting cards, the diary kind of a thing. So it fascinated me in the past. This was very useful, and a company which was in the business of print making these, how do they look at their market
Yeah.
as someone who wants to collect the cards? Or if we look from a jobs to be done point of view, the customer probably is trying to have their contact information accessible.
Yeah. Or maintain contact with their network, right?
So now
It's
that I got simplified, I guess. So this gentleman probably will have to rethink about their business and
yeah.
start thinking, is there something I can serve this customer who is trying to keep his contact information accessible to them?
Yeah. That's exactly right. See, if you define your market as the product itself, that product has become obsolete, right? But it doesn't mean the market went away. There's still a group of people trying to maintain, contact with their network, but they're going about it very differently, right?
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with the drill and the quarter-inch hole, right? Like we said earlier, um, if the drill could eventually become obsolete as well, if you could use a laser
There you
to
go.
right to make your way through wood material or metal, and that now that's all different. But the job's still the same, the market's still the same, but the technology changes over time to better address those unmet needs of customers.
Yeah. I think I'm now inspired to ask another question on that context is, we said that I learned that the job to be done remains almost same for a longer period of time versus a shelf life of a product or a service. So I could sense there that if a business starts connecting better with the jobs to be done rather than with their product or service, I think that brand seems to be setting themselves for a very long run serving their customers. What would you like to say about that?
Yeah, I agree. That is the ultimate in making your company customer centric,
Mm.
right? Like what you want to do is you don't want to organize your company around products, because
Mm.
products come and go. That means those people will come and go, the expertise will come and go. you want to align your company around the jobs your customers are trying to get done. And you'll always be looking for the next technology and solution that helps them get the job done better. Right? It changes the way that companies operate, and it really forms the foundation for being a customer-centric organization.
That's, I think, beautiful. The choice that need to be made by brands, whether to align with their products or with the jobs to be done, and the benefit of choosing to align with the jobs to be done, and probably even expanding their market. I remember in your video, you also mentioned about ancillary or extended business opportunities
Yeah.
when you get the jobs to be done right. And you cannot connect with the additional business opportunities if you are connected with the product and not with the jobs to be done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've seen this in my lifetime in the music industry, or with people trying to listen to music. I love the example because we've seen LPs move off to cassette tapes, to 8-track tapes, to CDs, to MP3s, to streaming services, right? All in the span of a few decades.
Okay.
And the job has stayed the same. They're just better and better solutions. But in every one of those cases, the incumbent was disrupted by the next technology because they weren't focused on getting the job done. They were focused on being in the LP market or the cassette market, right?
And they were happy in their comfort zone. I think that can be pointed out. They
Yeah.
missed the bus in being comfortable in their zone.
Yeah. That was their expertise. So they didn't invest in the expertise that would require them to not be disrupted,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
One classic example that happened in the Indian scenario was, I recall, when there was dual SIM mobiles coming into the market in India. There was a brand called Micromax, and they were bringing it out. Nokia bluntly said, "No, that will not succeed," and they stayed away from that market, only to be surprised that within a year or two, the market was flooded with customers' appreciation for these mobiles, where you can put two SIMs, and their life was easier when for all those who had to carry two mobiles.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly. There's lots of great examples, and that's why I love jobs to be done theory, because it predicts which products will win in the market, and it's those that get the job done better.
Yeah. And I think if from your and also speaking about outcome driven innovation, I would not probably find a single organization who would not love to have outcome driven innovation, because that's often the puzzle. They say, "Oh, you want to innovate, you have an R&D, you have a research team," but the CEO is asking, "What's the outcome?" They're in a hurry to see the results. I think they all will smile in joy to hear a term like outcome driven innovation. How was your experience with your clients or customers when they got introduced to this term outcome driven innovation?
Well, of course, initially everyone wonders, well, what does that mean? It sounds like we have the end in mind, which is
Hmm.
true, right? So everything's really geared towards what we're trying to achieve. But more importantly, it's not what we're trying to achieve as a company, it's what the customer's trying to achieve, right? So, with, parents preparing a meal, for example, for their children, when they're preparing the meal, they have a set of metrics they're using to judge success, right? Like they want to minimize the likelihood of overcooking the meal, or minimize the likelihood of undercooking the meal, or minimize the time it takes to cook the food evenly,
Yeah.
minimize prep time. So there's all these metrics they're using to judge success when getting a job done.
Yes.
Those are the outcomes.
Hmm.
It's the customer's outcomes that they're trying to achieve when they're trying to get the job done perfectly.
I think
And
that's
when
called perfect alignment with the customer's needs.
well, that's the way we view it as well, right? People buy products to get a job done. As innovators, we're trying to help them get the job done better, which means we have to understand how they define better. And better can be faster, it can be more predictably, it can be with a better result, but it has to be at a very actionable level. Like, I want to minimize the likelihood of bad things happening. Well, what are those
Hmm.
things? I want to minimize the likelihood of undercooking the meal or overcooking. Right? Those very specific, measurable outcomes that define perfection in the eyes of the customer when getting the job done.
And if I
And
can add to that, I think the child appreciating the meal when they come back home is, I think, another metric for them to continue on that path. Another
yes,
customer.
indeed, indeed, and that's probably an underserved outcome as well.
Fantastic. So it was very nice that we went into multiple directions with one question. Thanks for that. So with that, I would like to move on to the next one. Nothing works or nothing convinces one as much as examples. It would be wonderful if you can share an example or two from your experience on business situations where jobs to be done came across as the best thing to happen to that business.
Well, let me start with one example that I really enjoy. This was with a company called OnTrack, which became Kroll OnTrack. They are experts at retrieving data off damaged hard drives.
Hmm.
Right? And so this was back in the early 2000s. And because they had this technology, they thought they would really excel in this up and coming market called electronic evidence discovery,
Hmm.
which is important when large companies enter a legal case and they need to gather data and use it in the trial. So they felt they had a great advantage. So
Hmm.
they put their first product out and it failed.
Oh,
They put their second product out and it failed. And that's when they came to Strategen to better understand what was happening, right? And what we learned very quickly is that there was a mismatch between what they thought the market was and what the market actually was.
hmm.
So, as an example, they were used to dealing with IT managers in large companies that would send them broken hard drives to retrieve data. So they continued to think that the customer was the IT people inside large organizations.
Hmm.
But as it turns out, what they were trying to do is to get data off the hard drive so legal teams could use it. And the customer shifted. It was no longer the IT people. The customer were legal teams who were trying to find information that would support or refute a case.
Got it.
A
Amazing.
big difference. And what they did in their first two failed attempts, they were good at getting the data off the hard drive, but it wasn't searchable. So they would give it to the legal teams, and the legal teams couldn't go through it in any meaningful or effective way to find the information that would support or refute a case. So they built the logic in there, which made it searchable. So
Hmm.
now the team had access to it and could quickly find the information they needed, and that was a home run for them. They led that industry. They're still
Amazing.
tops, but for 15 years they were the leaders, and they followed the approach. Um, and the data set that we created for them for about 10 years.
Hmm.
There, I love the story because there were about 60 unmet needs in that
Hmm.
market, and their first iteration of the product addressed about 30 of them. And
Wow.
then for years and years after that, they would pick the next five unmet needs or the next 10 unmet needs and keep working their way down the list. And I call this the most efficient path to growth, right? Where you're just constantly innovating on the most underserved needs in a marketplace. And that's what made it so hard for any competitors to catch up with them for a 15-year time frame.
I think it goes on to communicate how effective and how powerful recognizing or identifying the customer's unmet needs can be for an organization, and how costly it can be if you don't identify them.
And Karen, you're absolutely right. And what I find so remarkable about that is, we do polling of product teams all the time, and we know that about 90% of product teams there isn't agreement on what a need even
Very good.
is. That's the problem, right? And like you said, that's critically important. And if a team can't agree on what a need is, then of course they
Progress
can't agree
is.
on what the needs are, which needs are unmet, and what's the best solution. And this is why innovation is so difficult when you look at it through a product lens, right? And again, by looking at it through the lens of the hole maker, not the drill maker, it adds a lot of clarity to what you're trying to achieve.
I think one big benefit I'm seeing here is jobs to be done approach is helping the teams to be one team and have that one clear understanding about their customers' needs. I think that's fundamental. And if that is achieved, I think as we see organizations, when teams come together, if they are all on the same page, what can be achieved is amazing. If they don't, or if they can't come to on one page, and even if they come to a consensus on something, I think results are far, we can say results are far smaller and insignificant than what otherwise they can be for organizations.
That is exactly right. I believe it's transformational because you take a team from a place where they don't agree on what a need is to a place where they all agree on what the unmet needs are in priority order and are now debating what the best solutions are instead of debating what the problem is.
I think I can only imagine how that level of alignment would feel like, the energy that team would carry along when they have that common understanding, and you can say without any further disagreement or lack of conviction. When a team moves, it's just like in sport, we in India, in South India, there is a sport where the boats are rowed by men trying to compete with each other. I'm relating it with the team. If few of them are not convinced and they're not rowing, or they're rowing on the other direction, I think that team is never have a chance to win, versus another team where you can see the full rhythm of all of them rowing in one direction with all their energy and with full conviction that they would succeed in delivering to the customers' unmet needs.
That's very well said. It's all about that alignment. And I have a great quote that came from the CEO of the medicines company who we worked with for a number of years. His name is Clive Meanwell. And here's how he summed it up. He said, the outcome-driven innovation process brought competence, transparency, alignment, and mutual trust to teams who were used to operating in silos. I think that emphasizes your point as well. It's all about getting everyone rowing in the same direction with the same energy and focusing on creating the best solutions instead of debating on what problems they're trying to solve.
I think it just validates how each one's personal best, when put together in a team, can do miracles for the organization and the customers.
Indeed. And the customers benefit, and of course, the employees benefit themselves as well. There's nothing better than contributing to the evolution of people in society, and creating a great product that helps with that evolution is really rewarding.
Absolutely. That was wonderful, Tony, for sure. I enjoyed the unstructured part of our conversation, though there were only 2 questions. And the examples and the clarity that you offer to the audience around the subject of jobs to be done definitely will help me as well as the audience in taking up this journey on looking at jobs to be done as a way to make progress. I'm not using any other word. Make progress, healthy progress, deliver to their customers' needs, and then obviously achieve a domination in the industry, whichever they belong to.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot for you coming over and sharing this much wealth of information and wisdom from your 30 plus years of experience. To the audience, we hope that this conversation was of value to you and triggered your curiosity to know more about jobs to be done and how you can use it to benefit your customers and organization. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop in a line in the comment section. I'll be happy to have the response posted. And if I need help, I'll go back to Tony to get the response for you. And a special thanks to Tony for sure for taking time out and joining this conversation. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
I would also strongly recommend the audience to check out the book Jobs to be Done, Theory to Practice authored by Tony himself. And the best part, the book is free to download from their website. Do check out. And till we meet again on another concept or topic related to customer experience, have a wonderful time and God bless all.